Well, hello again, and hello, Kate. Hello again. So good to see you this morning. Hello, audience. We are so happy to be here with you this morning. We have another great show for you. And before we get started, I want to remind you that we are streaming through Spanglish World Networks on Zingo TV, channels 250 and 251. And you can also download the Zingo TV app on your respective app stores on iOS and Android devices. And while you download that app, make sure that you leave us a stellar comment. The app is actually free. And also, the app is available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire TV Sticks, Roku Sticks, and on all smart TVs 2016 and forward. And I am your host, Dr. Michelle Odette Green. You know I love doing this show, and this show is all about helping you to have new heights of success in your life, bringing you empowering guests, and helping you to have more fulfillment in your life. And Kate is one of my wonderful guests. Kate is a returning guest. And Kate, thank you so much for agreeing to be back here. The last show we did, oh my goodness, it was so much fun. And I got so many God bumps throughout the show as I'm getting them now. And so this show, as I told you before, you agreed to come on. It is 50 to 55 minutes. We actually went more than an hour because it was so much information and you dropped so much gold. I didn't want to stop talking. And we just kept going. And I realized, okay, we got to stop the show. So I'm again so glad that you agreed to do a second show with me. And audience, get your journal or some paper, something to write with. I tell you, Kate is a wealth of knowledge. And let me just tell you a little bit about her, and then I am going to turn it over to you, Kate. I have a lot of questions still. Last time I had so many questions I did not ask you. So we're going to continue the show through just piggybacking on what we talked about on our last show. Audience, Kate is a dedicated healer and educator. She has a passion for empowering others to create the lives they desire. And I love that so much about her. And I've been actually privy to participating in it was a complimentary session, which we'll tell you about how you can get access to that. And that session was so liberating. And we'll talk more about that as we go through the show. And she is a Silva method instructor, advanced rapid eye technician, advanced sound healer, and yoga therapist. And Kate helps her clients to release stress and trauma while activating their intuition and clairvoyance. And that's why I have her here today. There's so much to unpack with you, Kate. So I want to turn it over to you to add anything to that short introduction that you want the audience to know about you. The
Well,
floor
thank
is
you so
yours.
much. I so appreciate coming back on the show with you, Michelle. I mean, I think the world of you. And in terms of what I do, I've done a lot in my little life, and I've trained in honestly over 1,000 modalities. And then I went and I did advanced training in the ones that I found those really work. So, I found ancestral healing. That's a big thing for a lot of people. What comes in through your DNA? So that's something that if you've taken care of everything with you and your subconscious, you're like, things aren't still going right. That's an opportunity to look at, hey, I got to look at my family line. I've got to look at the ancestors, because sometimes our ancestors didn't always choose the best of choices. And sometimes when we get that epigenetics in our DNA, we got a little bit more cleanup to do. So I have a wide variety, but I love teaching Silva method because it helps activate that intuition and your clairvoyance so you can use that every single part of your life, your personal life, your professional life, everything.
Exactly. So I'm so glad that you said that. What's so important is that with the study of epigenetics, we now understand that we have the ability to not activate some of the gene
Mhm.
expressions that have been passed down, and we have the ability to do something about those things that now, if we understand our ancestors had A, B, and C, we now have tools so that we don't have to continue to live
Yes.
that. That's the best way I know how to say that. Another thing that is so great about you is that you do the advanced studies. And I love that you've done advanced studies in neuroscience, and we'll talk about the neuroscience aspect of what you do as well, because that is so important. And when people really understand how epigenetics work, the neuroscience
Mhm.
work, they learn the tools and apply the tools, their life can be so much better. And so that's what I love about you and the work that you do, is that you don't just scratch the surface. You
Oh
get
no.
into it and go for the advanced knowledge of it, so you can really help people at a totally different level. And so thank you for that. And I want to tell the audience that we actually met in a training, and in that training I saw how you applied the information that we were learning there, and how broad your knowledge is. And so that's what gravitated me toward you and said, I would love to have you on my show. And thus we are here. So thank you, thank you, thank you for that. And then, speaking of the Silva method, how did you actually become involved with the Silva method?
To be perfectly honest, it's I became my mother's trustee. So my father passed away, I became trustee, and I was using all my tools. I'm like, this is not enough. I need more. You know, I'm one of many children, and I'll just say it was a very unhealthy environment that I grew up in. And so the vast majority of my siblings do that unhealthiness. I chose to exit stage left as a teenager and chose to live a totally different life. However, in being thrown back into the family, that's when I was like, oh my gosh, wow, they're still doing what we were taught in childhood that's not healthy. And that's where I just said, hey, I'm using all my tools. I need some more. I've got to up level again. So I went into meditation. And I don't know how it is when you go into meditation and you connect with divine, but I just said, I need help. I need help today, not tomorrow, not in a few weeks, not in a few years. I need help today. So I'm willing to sit here and listen until I hear, I know, I feel the best direction to move forward in. And so I sat and I listened and I communed, and I heard the word Silva. And I was like, I don't even know what Silva is. And so after I got out of meditation, of course, I went to the internet and I'm like, let me look up what Silva is. And I looked it up. And by then, I was in a class by that weekend. I was learning the different tools. And then once you take the class, you can repeat the class at a fraction of the cost. So here I am. I just kept repeating it. I repeated it another 6 times because I wanted to get so good at the tools. And then I thought, my gosh, there's no one in my area teaching this. I would love to be able to share it with other people because I could use the tools and I was seeing results, and I was seeing results quickly. You have to do the work. You know, Silva is not a magic bullet where you go to the 4 day and you're like, oh my gosh, my whole world is different. No, you learn it. You may have a jump start in your change, and then you have to actually utilize the tools. And if you do what they prescribe, what they say is, you know, if you're just looking to be a casual meditator, okay, that's one time a day. If you're looking to be more aggressive with what you actually desire to achieve, it's 3 times a day, 15 minutes each time. So I said, I'm going to do it 3 times a day, 15 minutes each time. And I'm going to utilize these different tools. And sometimes it was longer than that. But I was like, I'm going to change this and I'm going to use my mind to be able to do that. And literally, I saw results in less than 3 months. I'm like, this is awesome. I'd like to keep doing it. And so I have done it. And then I became an instructor and I taught many others how to do it. And it's so fun watching others as they employ the tools. They start shifting things in their health, things that they were told were incurable, impossible. They've been able to reverse things with their jobs where they're like, you're stuck, you're never going to outgrow this. They've outgrown that. When they've hit a glass ceiling of money, then they've been able to outcreate that. And so it's just a testament. If you actually use the tools, you have to use them, then you can start to shift and change. And you're the one in charge, you're the creator. So I initially found it because I was seeking, I was like, I require and desire more help. And so I literally went into meditation, connecting to divine source, saying, please help me. I desire this. My heart's desire is to create betterment.
Oh, that is so good. I appreciate you so much. I appreciate what you just shared with us. And I appreciate you reminding us repeatedly that when you learn the tools, you must apply the tools in order to see results. If you have a hammer and you know that it's to be used on a nail, if you just have the hammer in your hand and you never hit the nail, you never know the results that it will get. And so, therefore, I love the fact that, yes, you had other tools when you had to step back into the family and handle the family business, and you realize that the tools that you had were not enough. And
Yeah.
therefore, you sought an answer. And in that meditation, you were guided to Silva. And what a beautiful thing to actually get the answer to what you need to do, the direction you need to go. And that just happened to me as well just the other day. I am going through some challenges in my life, and I was like, okay, I need some other tools to help me navigate this. And the answer was provided to me, similar to what you said. And so it just makes me know that I'm on the right track. And so, with that, you spoke a lot about, just taking the tools, applying them, truly living them out by saying, okay, if I need to do meditation 3 times a day, 15 minutes a day, if that's what the prescription is, let me just say it
Yeah.
that way, I'm going to do it because I want those results. So tell us more about what impact has it had on your intuition?
Oh my goodness, it's fantastic. So I already had strong intuition going into Silva. And then by practicing, it has heightened. And every time it heightens and heightens, the more you practice, the better you get. So as a result, I do some volunteer work. Some of the volunteer work that I do includes essentially helping to solve cold cases. So cold cases where it's been sometimes multiple decades that have passed and they don't know what happened. Well, guess what? I've got tools that I can go in and help because I'm looking at, may the best for all involved occur. You know what? If this can help the police department, if this can help the family, by all means, because I have these abilities and these skills, I continue to do. I meditate 3 times a day, 15 minutes a day. Even though the different things that I'm working on have shifted and changed, I still continue to keep that. It's just become part of like brushing my teeth every day. I brush my teeth in the morning and night. I meditate in the morning, at night, and in the afternoon after lunch. It's just part of my normalcy. And so when you
Yes.
make it a habit as such, literally everything shifts in your world. And so it's interesting because I've been able to shift a lot of things personally that I desire to change. So I grew up in a family that was very unhealthy. There was a lot of rage, a lot of anger, and I would let it just bottle up inside. And then that caused some illness for me. I didn't want to do that anymore. I wanted to just release all of that. And so I learned different techniques to be able to do that. And so I was like, oh my gosh, this is huge. So you can literally change things about yourself that you're like, you know what? I'm not showing up as my best self. I'd like to be my best self. What can I do? And so I've had other people come and take the Silva method where they have a lot of anxiety, a lot of depression, and they just are like constantly wired, like, ah! And then they learn the tools, they implement them, they use them 3 times a day, 15 minutes a day. And then literally 6 months later, they're a different person. They're like, I don't know who this is, but this is not the same woman. And so I've had multiple students come through and they're like, my spouse doesn't recognize me. I am not the same person that I used to be because as you choose to do your own personal development, say, I'd like to change 1, 2, 3 about myself, and you start working on that, and then it starts shifting, people notice. They notice these things quite a bit.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. And so I feel like I'm very intuitive. And sometimes I will doubt my intuition. And so, how can we recognize and trust our own intuition?
It is practice, 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 practice. So that's one of the things I highly recommend for every person. Even if you have really strong intuition, I highly recommend taking the 4 day, because what we do is we do over 20 meditations where we program your brain so that you are receiving it, and you can also acknowledge it to be like, oh, I know what that is. As you mentioned, you get God bumps, so you're like, here we go, I'm going in the right direction. And so it helps facilitate a lot more ease. Also, there's other tools I use in addition to that. Muscle testing, I'm a huge fan of that. So using your intuition, you can always double check and muscle test. That is one of the best things. So if you're like, hey, I got this hit, let me just double check that. And you double check and you're like, okay, thank you so much, I'm moving forward with, option A.
Yes, so good, so good. So, this is the perfect time for you to tell us a little bit more about the 4 day that
Yeah.
you just spoke of so people will understand what you're talking about.
Absolutely. So this is 4 days of immersive training. So I do it live online. I also do it in person a couple times a year. However, at the end of December, I'm doing it live online. So it is interactive. And everyone comes, and then literally I teach you a number of tools, over 20 tools, and we do over 20 meditations. And then as such, you can use the different tools and the meditations to create ultimately what you would like to change or what you desire in your life. There are some people that they've got a lot of stuff going on in their subconscious that's adversely affecting their life here and today. And a lot of
Mhm.
times it's at no fault of their own. Whatever we go through from womb to 8. So womb, whatever we got it through epigenetics all the way through 8 years old, it's going to affect us because that's all our programming. The culmination of who we are today is the affect of all of that programming from childhood, plus the repeated nature of all those programs. So when you come to the 4 day, literally get ready to get your meditation on, because we're going to start working with your brain so that you're using your right brain, your left brain, the front and the back, and you're also crossing over the corpus callosum. The vast majority of people do not ever cross over. They hang on one part of their brain all day long. So in the 4 day, I teach you how to use the whole brain and how to easily get in it. And we practice it so much, by the end of the 4 days, you can get into a different brainwave state in less than 5 seconds.
Ooh, I
Most
love
people, when you
that.
talk about that, they're like, what? So if you look at traditional TM, great thing. I did it for years. But to get into a different brainwave state, it took 20 minutes. That's like a lot of time, especially if you've got a job and you're doing everything else. Whereas with Silva, we program and we train you. So literally you can get there in less than 5 seconds.
I love that. So you said a number of things that I want to give some context to for our audience. You mentioned muscle testing. Can you explain a little bit more
Yeah.
to everyone what that is?
So muscle testing, the whole concept is, if you're familiar with applied kinesiology, is that
Hmm.
we have the answers within us. If you are fully connected, fully aligned, you will have the correct answers within you. Now, if you're not aligned and you're not fully connected and you're not in your body, you're not going to get accurate information. So why do I say that? Because there are some people, they've disassociated so much in their life, their spirit leaves their body. It's just like, oh, it didn't ever feel safe. Their body felt like a war zone. So if you're wanting to use muscle testing, you've got to make it safe for your spirit to stay in your body. And this is the other concept. A lot of people are like, what? I'm like, if your spirit's leaving your body, what's in your body? And if so, if there's something else in your body, some other beings without bodies, you gotta kick that stuff out, because this is your body. This is your space on this planet. This is not any other things. This is yours. So if you're disassociating and leaving your body, what's in your body? And so
Ooh.
you gotta kick that crap out. And then you gotta choose to come back in your body. And then you've got to choose to embody your body. And then one of the things that I do, this is not Silva, but this is something that I've learned in a lot of my other trainings, especially with the apprenticeships I did with shamanism and various types of shamans, is that being connected to the earth and the sun, the cosmos, Father Sky, as you are connected and grounded, we live on planet Earth. As you connect, you are in your heart center. When you are in your heart center and you are fully embodied in your body, you are showing up on this planet. And you can do your muscle testing, the applied kinesiology, to ask the questions, and your body will give you the answers. So, one of the easiest ways that I teach it, you can look it up online, it's called the sway test. And the sway test, I do a little bit more advanced. I put my hand on my heart, my hand on my belly, and then I ask to show me a litmus test. So I'll say, show me a yes. Body, show me a yes. And then I wait to see what my body shows me. Most people typically go forward with yes, and then I'll say, body, show me a no. And then most bodies go backward with a no. And then I'll do another litmus test. I'll say, okay, truth, my name is Fred. My body's already like, no, it's not. Your name is not Fred. And if I say, truth, my name is Cate, my body goes forward. Now, in order for this to work, like I said, you've got to choose to be fully embodied in your body. You've got to be fully connected. If you're not in your body, if you're out in left field, you got to come right back in to get the answers.
So good, so good. Thank you for that. The sway
Yeah.
test is your preferred method. So good. You
It's
also
easy
use
for beginners. So once you go from beginning sway testing, then we can go to a more advanced techniques. So I'm trained in some other modalities. One of them is resonance repatterning, and I do it with my hands. I do it very quickly because in doing that work, I had to go through 300 sentences, sometimes in 30 minutes. So I had to go through fast, and I had to be accurate every single time, 100% accuracy, to find out what was going on in the person's body and then see what needed to be shifted and changed.
Woo, so good, so good. You also mentioned another acronym when you spoke about meditation and being able to get into an alpha state within 5 seconds versus the 20 minutes. And you mentioned the acronym TM. Can you tell our audience
Oh,
what TM?
transcendental meditation. So if anyone's familiar with it, it's wonderful. I did it for a number of years. It's just the challenge is 20 minutes going in and 20 minutes going out. If you do have a career or you have a job or kids, it's really hard to get in all that time because it's 20 minutes to go in, 20 minutes to go out, then the time to actually do the programming. Whereas with transcendental meditation, it is a great thing. I did it for a number of years, but then when I found something better, I do different. And so Silva was a much faster and easier way to get into the alpha brainwave state. The majority of us, we all hang out in the beta brainwave state, which is a faster cycles per second. When you go into the alpha brainwave state, it's a lower cycles per second. So in the lower cycles per second, we have access to more information. Well, if you could get there in less than 30 seconds or 20 minutes, what would you choose?
Right. The shorter time. And
Yeah,
so with that being said, I had another question for you, but I'm gonna skip that question because with you bringing up the alpha brainwave state, I want to talk about, can you describe more of the role of the alpha and the theta brainwave states in enhancing your intuition?
absolutely. So, as I mentioned, beta brainwave state, it's a higher cycles per second with the brainwave. The alpha brainwave state is slower. It's a slower cycles per second. Most people, the only time they're familiar with the alpha brainwave state is right as they're going to sleep and right as they're waking up. That's when they go into the alpha brainwave state. Well, what you learn how to do in the 4 day Silva training is you learn how to intentionally go into the alpha brainwave state. Now, why go in the alpha brainwave state? Who cares? Well, we can change things. We can release trauma. We can release stress. We can program ourselves. We can change things in the subconscious that aren't working for us. We can change things that you're like, I found a pattern. I found a program. I found something that I'm like, this is not good. I got something from epigenetics. I don't like it in my DNA. I want to change this up. Well, we can do that all in the alpha brainwave state. Now, the alpha brainwave state, it's a brainwave state that I've learned in many other modalities because that is where we can shift and change things, not only in the brain, the body, the energetic field, and the energetic bodies. In addition to that, we can deprogram and reprogram. That's huge because let's talk about worst case scenario. Let's say someone was born into a very egregious situation, very unhealthy household. Maybe there's only one parent and the parent's not even present, so they're bounced around to different foster care and there's a lot of abuse going on. That's a lot of programming of crap, like straight up crap. Because then there's usually abandonment, there's usually lack of worthlessness, so many issues. Well, then if you grow up, you age out of foster care, you're 18 plus. What are you going to go to so you feel better? Most people go to something to numb all that hurt and pain, so addictions take place. So this gateway is trauma. It is this unprocessed trauma. So in the alpha brainwave state, we can start to change that. And we can actually change what is in the subconscious. And so the alpha brainwave state, it's like you have just hit gold. And if you learn and know how to use it properly, you can start to shift and change everything in your life. And you can change it for the better of what you choose to create. There's some people I've met that it's like, how is it no matter where you go, you always have a problem with your employer? That they're
Mm-hmm.
always wrong. You're always blaming them. Well, guess what? That's a pattern and that's a program. Guess where that is? That is lodged in your subconscious. So guess what? You have the opportunity when you take the 4-day and you learn how to do this, you can start to work on yourself. You can start to shift and change this. You can deprogram that trauma and reprogram it for what you choose to do. Now, if you're like, okay, I'm going to go do it. I'm going to do it for a day. It's going to be gone. I'm like, 15 minutes a day, 3 times a day, minimum. And this is over a course of time. This isn't instantaneous. So anyone who's thinking, I'm going to take the 4-day and then I'm going to walk on water, I'm going to say, that is lovely. I love that thought process. And it's going to take a little bit more work than that because we're human beings.
So good, so good. So you mentioned earlier too, when you first happened upon, and I'm saying happened upon, I know it was downloaded
Yeah.
to you, Silva, that was another tool that you needed, and you start doing the work. And you mentioned it took about 3 months for you to really start seeing the
Yeah.
results in your life. And I want to go back to that for a minute because of what you just talked about. People tend to give up after, a couple of
Yeah.
weeks or a month because they think they're not seeing results. But it does take time to see the results. And if they give themselves enough time, some results you will see
Yeah.
instantaneously, some will take time. But what I like to do is actually chart every
Yes.
day because it gives a benchmark so that you can start recognizing if you're seeing small shifts, because small shifts will add up to big shifts. And one day you'll be like, aha, wait a minute.
Yeah.
This has really shifted in my life. And like you said, people are actually telling you they've noticed the change. And so just going back to knowing that it's not necessarily overnight. It can be based on the emotional significance of what is being reprogrammed.
Yeah.
And we understand some things just take a little bit more time to
Yeah.
process. And so, can we park there for a moment? Because I want you to really talk about that just a little bit more. And I love the fact that you brought up the example. If you're going for from employer to employer and you're having the problem with the employer, then recognize that is a pattern and that is a program. And it will take some time to in some cases to uncover what's really going on, to deprogram that, and then some time to reprogram it. So I want to turn the floor back over to you
So,
based on what I
so with
just
that,
said.
and that's key. I also do private sessions for that because a lot of times people are working on it and they're like, it's not quite getting there. What am I missing? And so I'll go in and I'll facilitate and see what else I'm seeing to support them. Because honestly, it can be programming from childhood. It can also be from epigenetics. It can be from all 4 family lines. So some people get hit up with like a quadruple whammy. And they're like, what in the what? I showed up in this family line. I got smacked upside the head 4 times, and then also in my childhood, so a total of 5 times. And then, as I mentioned, if they went through, foster care, here they have all these programs running where they were taught to blame others as opposed to
Yes,
looking within.
yes,
Is it possible the employer is at fault? Possibly, but there's also possibly things inside of you that you're creating this. And that's a
yes.
little bit of a harsh thing to say, but at the same time, we do have to look within because whatever you were programmed with. So for example, if we take up the person who goes employer to employer and they're bouncing around and they went through an unhealthy childhood and then foster care, if they had guardians saying it's your fault, you did this wrong, da da da. So you get any feedback at your job. Let's say you wrote an email, it wasn't done properly, or you set a meeting, it wasn't done properly. You get feedback from your boss like you did this wrong. Guess what? They'll go into a spiral of guilt, fear, shame, and judgment down the rabbit hole of I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I don't know if I deserve this. Oh, this is their fault. They don't like what I did. So it becomes this whole story in their
Yes.
head. And so it
Mhm.
all comes down to the root cause of the subconscious programming. And so that's a huge bit of awareness to say, hey, you know what? Here's an opportunity. I'd like to have a different outcome. So I have some things to change in the subconscious. I like to call it under the hood. You have some things under there that it's time to shift and change if you'd like to have a different experience. If you don't, then don't do anything. You're going to keep having the same experience. It'll keep happening over and over. However, if you're like, this isn't working for me, that's where there's the opportunity to say, you know what? I need to dive a little bit deeper.
Yes, yes, so good. So self awareness is the first step.
Yeah,
Understanding that you're running these patterns and programs, and now you got an opportunity to do something different, to shift. And that's where you want to get the help and get the tools. And so that's what I love that you're offering this program. And we're going to go back to that program because I want to make sure that the
yeah,
audience knows more about the program as well. Earlier you mentioned about the whole brain state, and I know in our last show that we did, you gave us an example of how we can help to get into that whole brain state. And so, can you share with us some practical applications of that, as well as applications of how you can incorporate intuition in your daily life? I know
mhm,
you spoke about the meditation.
yeah.
And so, what other, just a sneak peek of what you can use to incorporate it into your daily life?
So, a couple of things that I love to do is I mentioned meditation. It's setting aside that specific time every single day. Why? This is about you. It's not about anyone else but you. It is part of, if you want to call it self care, you can call it self care, self maintenance, self love, but setting a time for you every single day so you can align and be connected to source, universe, whatever you choose to call it. That you are like, I'm going to connect, I'm going to choose to be embodied. That's one of the key things. Like people are like, oh, meditation, what's the big deal? I'm like, are you in your body? Do you like your body? Do if you're not in your body and you're not hanging in your body, here is my number one invitation to you. Please start to come back into your body. If your body feels like a war zone, maybe there were egregious things that happened in childhood. You know what? There's professional help. Like if you come and take Silva, you will learn how to start to do it on your own, and you can have additional assistance if you'd like. But literally getting in your body, choosing to be embodied. A lot of times people talk about the death scroll, where they're scrolling through social media.
Yeah.
Where are they? Are they in their body? Are they off in la la land? Come back into your body. And
Yes.
what is that like to be in your body? What does it feel like to have your spirit in your body? What does it feel like to be fully connected to the earth and to the sun, to the sky, and to be grounded? What does that feel like? Does it feel safe? Does it feel secure? So that's my number one. I use meditation because I don't just use it to go in the alpha brainwave state. It's like, hey, bring in myself. We're honing in. We're going back home. So if all of a sudden your mind's still at this like situation that happened at work or there was an argument, no, you're gonna pull yourself right back home. Yeah. And your energy that you left there, you're gonna bring your energy right back to you. Because sometimes, we get involved in different things all throughout the day, and you're like, the checker maybe wasn't nice at the grocery store. There's part of your energy you left there. And then, maybe at work, someone got really angry and then you got fearful. Well, part of your energy is then that. You bring all your energy right back to you. And so in meditation, I'm like, all right, I'm calling all my energy back to me. This is my energy. It's not for anyone else. I'm going to be fully embodied with my spirit inside of my body. If there's anything else, out, not your space. So I do that literally 3 times a day, because it does happen to all of us. And if you think it doesn't, I'm like, well, gold star for you. What I've noticed is that most people, their energy is sometimes all throughout the place based upon what they've been through in that day. So it's calling all your energy back to choosing to be embodied. Those are some of the key things before, like, even going into meditation. Like, I just kind of sit and I'm like, let me get present. Let me pull it all back to me. Let me be fully embodied in my body. Then I'll go into meditation. In terms of incorporating, those are two things. The third thing is look up at 45 degrees. Why? 45 degrees helps your brain to naturally go into the alpha brainwave state. Just by putting your eyes up at 45 degrees, your body's like, oh yeah, I can be in
Yes.
my body and it's okay. Well, this is important. If you're at work and something really uncomfortable starts happening and you feel that panic and that worry and you're like, just casually look up, take a deep belly breath in, use some somatic breathing with your belly, and then just be fully embodied. Like, it's okay. I got this. I'm here and I'm present. Because a lot of times, if you get triggered, disassociation, we want to bring you right back in that body so that you can choose to make a different choice.
Yes, so good, so good. Oh my goodness, you said so many wonderful things. I learned that technique of looking up as well when I years ago when I would get ready to cry and I
Mm-hmm.
was told just look up and it will just stop those tears in their track. Now, I'm not saying that we shouldn't cry. There are times when it's necessary because that's actually a release as well. And there are some times where at that moment it's if you can remove yourself from the room and then go cry, but if it's just not the time, you can
Yeah.
look up and it can help stop that. You said so much. Oh my goodness. Okay. So I need to unpack a little bit of this.
Okay.
So something you said so good about being embodied and coming home and calling in all of your energy. You
Yeah.
mentioned about the scrolling. A lot of people I have found is that they don't want to sit in silence. They need
Yeah.
the noise because they're more outward focused and it's hard for them to come inward and silence everything around them and be with themselves, because that's part of what it takes is to silence the noise around you and be with yourself. I know a person who ca- the silence drives them crazy. They got to have the TV on all the time. They have to have music, the noise, and it's like I tapped into. Oh, you don't want to really deal with this. Is just my assessment. Yes, I am judging that a little bit. I'm
I
judging
wouldn't
that.
say it's a judgment, it's information. To me, it's information. It's
It's
information as you're saying that this person only hangs out one part of the brain. They're not using their whole brain.
yeah, exactly, exactly. And so, speaking of that, what is one technique that we can use to actually use our whole brain?
So the one technique that I just shared, looking up at 45 degrees. So what
Yes.
this does is we are in the beta brainwave state. Then you look up at 45 degrees and the brain's like, oh my gosh, been hanging out on one side of the brain. I got to connect to the other side of the brain in the front and the back. It's like, oh, I'm like all cylinders are not firing. You're only in one part. So only one cylinder is firing and we need four. And so just by looking up at 45 degrees, it literally commands your brain wave to go into the alpha brainwave state. That is huge. It's one of the easiest things that you can possibly do. And as for this person who have to have constant stuff, you know what that says to me? There's a lot of programs, there's a lot of patterns, and there's a lot of fear. There's a lot of fear because what happens if they don't have that? Will they actually have to deal with their unprocessed trauma? That to me is a huge indicator. And I can say this from a lot of training that I've done in neuroscience, that I've done in so many modalities, that if someone is in that state, they've got some under the hood or subconscious work to do because they've got a lot of stuff to unpack and to process so they don't have to be reliant upon that. It can come to a point where your brain can be at rest and at ease, However, at this point, they have so many patterns and so many programs, not just from their own childhood, but from what I can see from all four family lines. They got a lot of cleanup
Mm,
to do. Now, that's an opportunity. This is also feedback. The way I look at it, it's feedback, it's information. That's really great information with this person. Would I personally choose to get into an intimate relationship with that person? Oh, no. No, 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 no. Why? Because how he is with his brain is how he will treat, I'm assuming it's he, I don't even know, how he will treat everyone and everything. So
yes,
it's a very unhealed person who's not healthy. They found coping mechanisms, such as leaving the TV on 24/7, constantly being on the phone. These are coping mechanisms. They're not healthy coping tools. It's a mechanism that's just gotten them through life. However, if this person would like to be better, use all of their brain, and feel a lot better, my gosh, I would highly recommend they come to the 4 day immersive training with Silva Method, because they'll be like, what the heck happened? I went to the 4 days and I feel calm. What do I do? Because there's no TV going on. There's no none of that going on. We're literally working with your brain, and I'm teaching you how to get into the alpha brainwave state, how to program, how to deprogram, how to retrain your brain to actually get what you desire instead of the default programming from all that unprocessed trauma or whatever it is that you experienced in childhood. Childhood plus your epigenetics. Because most people, they're acting on default programming. That's it. It's just a
that's it.
default program, and they don't know what they don't know. Well, this is if you're desiring to up level, to use your brain with your body in a way to actually step into the role as a creator. That's what Silva Method does. But if they don't want to be a creator, that's really cool. They can keep doing that default programming. I know plenty that are like, I love my anxiety. I'm like, you have at it. That is yours and yours alone. Me, I'd rather like use all cylinders and create what I desire and not do the default programming of my parents or my ancestors, because it wasn't good programming, you know?
Whew, so good, so good, so good. You hear a lot of people saying the devil made me do it.
Oh, no,
No, the
no, no.
programming made you do it. It's the
No, that's
programming.
a choice you did. You know what I mean?
Exactly. So
But that's
so good, so
ridiculous.
good. So we hung out with the alpha brainwave state a lot, and I did mention the theta earlier. So
Oh, yeah.
can we talk about the theta brainwave
Yes.
state, and is that a brainwave state that you also teach?
We do highlight on it. We don't emphasize it as much. The theta brainwave state, that's in even slower cycles per second in the brain. So most people, when they sleep, they're in theta. And so there's various healing modalities. I'm trained in a lot of them from in terms of going into theta. I personally really like alpha because you can do so much with it. You can also do a lot with theta, but that's Silva doesn't really focus on that, because there's so much that you can do with alpha, and most people are not employing alpha at all. And so when you're deep asleep, if you want to do programming, you can. Well, the alpha is the entryway into theta. So if you do it right before you go to sleep and you're programming at alpha, after you've taken the 4 day and then you go into theta, you will start programming and receiving that information upon awake. And you may even
Yeah.
have dreams. We do a lot of dream programming in Silva Method as well. And so with dream programming, you can program to have your dreams give you the solutions to whatever issue or problem that you have that you'd like to have a better outcome. So we do a lot of different things. So if you want to use theta, absolutely you can. We just teach you a ton about alpha and then also some about theta, because theta, as I mentioned, that's where we do a lot of dream programming.
I love that. And then speaking of that early age programming that's not
Mm-hmm.
ancestral, basically the from those ages, mother's womb to about 8, the kid we're in, I shouldn't say just the kid, but that age period, we're in more of a theta
It depends.
brainwave
So
state.
when we're
And
first born,
yes,
when you're in the womb, you're in delta. So you're just receiving it. The fetus is like, I'm just receiving whatever mom is feeling, I'm feeling. And this is the part that's so interesting. The fetus cannot differentiate between their thoughts and feelings and mother's. It's the
Yeah.
same. So if the mother's going through some hard times or challenges and she is thinking, I feel trapped, I don't want to be here, guess what? That fetus is thinking that. And when that fetus is born into a baby, they're going to be thinking that. And that's going to be a program running. So going back to this whole thing, whatever you went through, you're in delta, you're born in delta, then you go into theta for about the first 2 years, and then you go into alpha. And then you're just a sponge. You're soaking up everything as the truth, regardless if it's true or not. You're soaking it all up and in. And then that's where all your patterns and programs come from. So if you're ever
Yes.
like, where did this unhealthiness come from? Your guardians.
Yes, so that is where when you notice the results you're having in your life, you can look at, oh, this is a program. And now I am aware that I can do something about it. So getting the tools necessary to change it is so important. My producer just said we are almost out of time. So I need to make sure that we cover a few more things. So let's talk about you got several things going on. You got the complimentary session, which is on Wednesdays, and I participated in a recent session, and my goodness, I felt so good as a being a part of that. First of all, listening to the people who have been a part of your program and how they talk about the tools that they apply to their lives based on the various situations that they're dealing with. They have all of these tools. You already spoke that you do 20, you give 20, and they talked about the tools in their tool bag and how they apply that to their lives and how they're getting results. And then you took us into that meditation, which was so wonderful, so relaxing. And then we came out, as far as I'm concerned, feeling more expansive for myself. And so that is on. Tell us real quick, when is that? And
That is
then
every first Wednesday of the month at 7 p.m. Pacific. And so if people are interested in signing up for it, they can go to subscribepage.io/CUMP. So comp, subscribepage.io/CUMP. And then you just sign up for the first Wednesday complimentary meditation. And so that's available for anyone worldwide. And then I also have coming up, I had the introduction to Silva method. So if you're thinking about this and you're like, I'm not ready to invest in the 4-day, but I'd like to learn more and learn more about the neuroscience behind it, I am doing that on December 15th at 3 p.m. Pacific. And that is subscribepage.io/Silva method. Again, that's subscribepage.io/Silva method. And so if you want to come and check it out, it's 90 minutes. And then if you do choose to sign up for the 4-day, that money is then applied to the 4-day. So you get $150 off.
that is so good, so good, and well worth it. It's so well worth it to change your life. And like you said, yes, it may be the 4-day immersive. However, you have ongoing
Oh, yeah.
programs to help people to continue to apply the
Yeah.
tools that you teach during the program. And I love, love, love that. And then the 20 different meditations. Oh my.
Yeah.
And being
And so
able to get into state quickly. Oh, yes,
exactly.
go
So
ahead.
once you're a graduate, you're welcome to come to, I do a graduate meeting every single month. And so as a graduate, you can come. There are some certain rules, like you have to be kind and honest, treat people well. If you're going to do any of the things that are opposite that, then you can't be a part of it. But for the most part, everyone can easily follow those. So once you're a Silva graduate, you have access to these complimentary Silva graduate reviews every month. So I do them. All the instructors throughout the world do them.
So good, so good, so good. I love everything about what you're saying. This is wonderful. And we are up against time. So I got one more question for you. And then please tell us how our audience can get in touch with you. I'm going to have everything in the show notes. Well, we only have 1 minute. So tell us how our
Okay,
audience
so
can
the
get in touch
complimentary
with you.
meditation, it's subscribepage.io/CUMP. If you'd like to come to the 4-day, we'd love to have you, or Silva Method introduction. That is subscribepage.io/Silva Method. Or if you're just wanting to check out more, you can come to my website, heal.me/Silva Method West. Again, that's heal, HEAL.me/Silva Method West. Michelle, thank you so much for having me. It's been a sheer delight.
It has been a delight. This has been so wonderful. Listen, I think I got through about four of my questions, and I had 16 questions for you. So, folks, we have come to the end of this show. This show has been wonderful. Go back, listen to it, share it with your family and friends. We dropped a couple of great gems, and just as you apply those, you can start seeing little micro shifts in your life. And so I encourage you to take advantage of the complimentary session and move into the subsequent sessions as well. We have reached the end of our show, everybody. Thank you so much for being here once again. This show can be heard on the Spanglish Radio Networks. Please check us out on spanglishworld.ca for all the news of programming. Spanglish World, you can watch it, you can read it, you can download it, and you can live it. Thank you. Until next time, have a wonderful day.
Bye. Thank you so much, Michelle.
Thank you.